to turn this. That's pretty amazing. Well, thank you. It's a group text, which I do not like. Because it goes off forever.
We are recording,
Ready?
so go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm Mark Revis, Heritage Preservation Officer and Neighborhood Planner, and people are afraid of melting out in the rain, but that's.
Yeah, they are. I rode with lightning.
Brown sugar milk.
We can tell who the real Flintstonians
Yeah.
are here, right?
So why not have everybody introduce themselves? We have some new people that are, why you're thinking about participating toward the end of our effort in the property care ordinance.
Me first.
Sure.
Me first. I'm Aileen Sofer, and I took a little hiatus from all the programs that I've been involved with, including planning and zoning, and for, I don't know, 6 months or a year. And now I'm kind of moving back into being involved in things,
Thank you.
so. And I work at the Flagstaff Federated Church, which is a historical church by the library, and so we like to know what's going on in our neighborhood.
Great building.
Yeah, it is.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay.
That's for me. That's
In a
it.
nutshell. So I'm Francine Moore, and I'm a property owner here in the South District. I am originally from Flagstaff, moved away for quite a while, and moved back to Flagstaff 4 years ago to oversee the properties that I own. And I converted some of the long-term apartments and stuff to Airbnbs, and that was a good move. So anyway, here I am, back.
Great facility that really reflects what this neighborhood is about.
Yes.
Yeah. Duffy.
Duffy Westheimer, live on West Aspen for 33 years, something like that. And care a lot about historic Flagstaff. And I don't want to see it deteriorate, and keep that.
I'm Abelus Lamb with Sunnyside Neighborhood Association. I was born and raised in Flag. Have West Side roots too, because here on Clay, what this used to be called, all the Estrellas were born and raised. Right there where the carnival station is was where her house, my grandma's house was. And right behind Bill's Bargain Barn, if any of you remember.
Oh, yeah, absolutely I do.
But the reason that I joined this is I got tired of seeing Sunnyside finally got curbed and guttered. And by and large, it looks better. It really does, except for people who still pile their trash willy-nilly on the sidewalks and sometimes just in their yards. And that's really why I'm here. It's just to help make sure that we don't want to be like Continental, but we sure want to look better. That's all.
Online
We
people.
have 5 people online, so
Great.
we'll start with Michael.
Okay, there, got it. My name's Michael Banker. I moved here 4 years ago to Flagstaff. And my main interest is making the city look much neater and cleaner. I live in Pinnacle Pines, so I drive down Zuni 2 or 3 times a week to get to Safeway and the various other businesses over in that area. And so that takes me through Bow and Arrow community, which by and large is pretty trashy. There's some glaring examples in there that are just horrible, but I just thought, I'd like to get involved with this and see if I can make a contribution and see where this is going to go. And later, I do have a couple of questions for the people with the city. Just as a matter of my education. So glad to be with the group and look forward to helping out where I can. Thanks.
Thank you. Next.
Laura.
You there, Laura?
Yes, sorry about that. It took me a second. I'm Laura Myers, and I'm with La Plaza Vieja neighborhood, and we're just wanting to make sure that everybody has a nice quality of life. So that's why I'm here.
Jesse.
Jesse, you there?
I'm here, again, also with Plaza Vieja Neighborhood Association. And just trying to make sure that, like Laura says, the quality of life, lifelong resident, just like Abel and some of the others. And Abel, I was trying to remember what Bill's Bargain Barn was named, and thank you for that information. That memory is starting to slow down for me. My memory and my computer is a little slow today.
Forget it.
Anyways, thanks, Abel, for the information.
All right, Stephen.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Stephen Thompson. I am with the city in the sustainability office. And the reason that I'm a part of this group and helping out is because one of the main program areas for me is the community stewards program. So that's the Adopt an Avenue, Adopt the Foots Trail. So I work with a lot of community members and do a lot of litter cleanups. So I always think education and prevention is the best way to stop the litter cleanups. I would hope that this property care ordinance and other initiatives coming out of this group will put me out of the job as far as litter cleanup goes. But I'm just here to help out, help the community in every way possible. So thank you.
Then Valeria.
Hi, everyone. I'm Valeria Chase. I have a joint position between the city and the university as a neighborhood liaison. And the main reason I'm here is to gather information and to see, how I can do outreach, and if the ordinance goes through, that I can pass the information along to local and student residents.
Is everyone? Oh, no. The new.
We just introduced why we're here.
Okay. Rick Lopez, with the Northern Arizona Association of Realtors, primarily here to make sure that this doesn't get too heavy-handed, and also to make sure that it gets submitted before the Housing Commission before it gets submitted to the council.
Great.
Everyone.
I'm sure you've gone to all these meetings and ground rules, so let all participate, turn phones off, which I always forget to do, and assume positive intent. We'll review the purpose and intent. We've been back and forth on that. Just so you're familiar, the primary document is the one that reads Property Care Ordinance July 14th, 2022. The skies kind of opened up for me after all of this effort. So this was my, that's how much property care research and ordinance and going back and forth we've done. If you remember, we started with 10 different things and we kept going through those. And then you get the realization that those 10 things are saying the same thing again and again. So the KISS principle of keeping it simple is, I think, what we finally ended up with. And I'll go over those, what we did there and how we're thinking about it. But we've been back and forth on title, purpose, and intent, which has been a challenge. So we added a lot to it. We took stuff away. We added stuff to it again. We took stuff away. So I will read it. People can make comments. We can add those to the notes if you don't think it goes far enough. But it's been a little bit of a back and forth on this. Title of this chapter shall be known and may be cited as the Property Care Ordinance of the City of Flagstaff. Within this chapter, it may be known as the PCO. Purpose. The purpose of the Property Care Ordinance is to protect public health, safety, and welfare by establishing minimum exterior maintenance standards for all residential and non-residential buildings, structures, and property and vacant land in the city to protect against hazardous, deteriorating, and other dangerous conditions. Intent. It is the intent of the city to work with property owners to preserve existing buildings and housing. PCO shall be applied and enforced fairly and consistently. The city shall provide adequate notice to affected property owners to resolve conditions, and the city will provide resources to assist property owners with compliance as they are available. That is kind of that as a program, being established as a program that has potential for proper staffing, equipment, and funding when the situation is where a person can't afford it. Or other situations that could range from low income, elderly, people with some level of mental issues. So, again, we will take comments on that, but I know we've added, every time we've added somebody, you know, it goes the other way.
Just to kind of maybe make this a little bit overly simplistic, but if, let's say that one of the issues regarding a particular property has to deal with things like peeling paint. Okay, how does that, again, as a simplistic issue, how does that affect public health, safety, and welfare?
The peeling paint issue exists to a certain point in established ordinances. It's really not something that, once we go into this, that's called out specifically, peeling paint. But deteriorating conditions can mean the loss of a building.
Well, I get that, you know, I get that, but again, I'm trying to relate it to the purpose of protecting public health, safety, and welfare.
Correct.
So if a building is deteriorating to the point where it could be loss of building,
Let me make that a little simpler, I think.
Okay.
Let's say you have a soffit in the fascia and it's had no paint on it. And because it's had no paint on it, it's lost its integrity, nails come off, it's falling off the building, ready to hurt somebody. That's getting into the world of building codes. But the source of why it failed was the fact that it wasn't maintained. But that's, the peeling paint world is not covered really within this.
Okay.
So the simplified wording is really looking at giving a tool to our code compliance, which we will, Reggie will be here next time. Code compliance is giving him the tools in a simplified version that people can understand, where he can say, I think you have a problem here. It doesn't comply with these basic things that are within the property care ordinance.
Mark,
That makes sense.
could you clarify that there is a line between aesthetics and maintenance? That's really what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Like Rick is, you're trying to say aesthetics really are not fair to go for,
Correct.
but, and you're going, we're talking about maintenance.
Right.
Public health, safety, word is difficult, welfare. We have a question from Michael. Michael?
Yeah, in the materials you sent out, and thank you very much, I read all the way through chapter 6.06 littering. And it seems like there's a lot of teeth in that ordinance. Is it just that it's not being enforced? Or my second question is, if I have a particular concern, who can I send my complaint to in the city that they will then send somebody out and take those actions up to notice, citing, fining, all of that stuff that is at section 6?
Correct. That is Reggie Eccleston and his crew, who is the code compliance officer, and he would direct his staff to do that. It enters other aspects.
So what was his name?
Reggie Eccleston. He's been here at the meetings.
Okay, I missed him, sorry.
So Reggie is a code compliance officer. I think it's coming down also to the fact that we don't have a unified place where these type of things are pulled together. So that's another reason why we're doing this. So that's like you said, where do you start out? You start out with the property care ordinance. And if you have to move on to a really serious situation, it is currently included in other chapters of the code, is what we tried to do with this simplified ordinance. If that makes sense, Michael.
Yeah, it does. I just in general, that area that I mentioned before, bow and arrow on Zuni, bow and arrow development down Zuni, could probably take the code compliance officer 2 months to go through and notify all the violators in that area. And it's sad because it could be a beautiful little area, but people just, there's a couple of glaring examples that are homes that are rentals by absentee owners. One of the owners is in California, the other one's in Scottsdale, and they really don't care as long as they get the rent money. They don't care what happens on the property.
Right.
And it's really sad because some owners do take care of their homes in that area, but by and large, the homes that are the renters just throw junk in the front yard. They don't care. They don't cut the grass. They don't trim the trees. It's sad. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah. And that's about code compliance, early steps, and the hope of unifying it into the property care ordinance is that those early notifications are can take care of some situations initially without going into this world of full quote, which we don't like the term enforcement, where you're sending out letters and attempting to, put the pressure on. But I think that Reggie will tell you about some of his most successful efforts has been working with people. Once it goes into the legal world, sometimes people, put their heels in and don't move forward at all. So that's part of it. Yes.
I was just gonna, it's maybe a good time to, a reminder that the last meeting that we have scheduled on July 28th is one that Reggie will be leading about code compliance practices.
Yeah.
So, Michael, that'll be a good time to ask some of those questions too.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Just to adjust a little bit how I'd reckon even what Mike said. Think about it. You heard me say I sent something to Dan on this issue about, this code compliance stuff. And I'm like, we're just trying to make our neighborhoods look better.
Yeah.
To health and safety, well, not really, not so much. According to Mike, in Bow and Arrow, that used to be a great neighborhood. Not so much. We're just trying to make our neighborhoods look better, but that's not in here.
Debris accumulation, littering,
Some of those words, and what I said to him, I'm just, the first two comments had to do with this very thing.
Oh, yeah.
And so I kind of rewrote it, but I put those words in there. I said the purpose of the city of Flagstaff property care ordinance is to improve, maintain the appearance of neighborhoods through now start the legalese protecting health, safety, and welfare. But the words finally, to me, got in there because that's what almost all of us are talking about. But it's not in here in plain, simple language.
We did put welfare back. Welfare is something that kind of links into that world. We'll definitely.
But the looks, the cars that are sitting on Isabel Street now, like, oh, shit, my neighbors,
right.
And I just like them gone.
Right. And it gets us back in the world of compliance with yard decorations and things along that line. But we did a little drive about, and it was interesting that some of the places that some people might not like the level of yard decorations, at least they're going out into the yard and taking care of the yard decorations, and I don't think you'd consider them as debris. So those are those fine lines, but welfare and what that definition is probably is where we can get into that world of quote appearance a little bit. I'm hoping, because I know what you're saying there.
So I have a question. So let's use Loretta's house for an example about, you know, Loretta's house. So-
Yeah,
Everyone knows Loretta's house.
it's a yard
Um,
decoration.
So that would be under decoration and that,
Unless there are some deteriorated conditions.
okay,
There's some potential safety issues that could be there.
yeah, okay. So that would be something that would they have to ask her permission to go look at those conditions? Or look for those conditions, I guess, kind of? Or would you just have to be able to notice it from the street?
Yeah.
Okay, because we've had a lot of wild cats there. We've captured several and had them spayed and neutered and,
We love health and safety.
okay.
There are provisions for animals. We
Okay.
love health and safety.
Okay.
Welfare is hard work.
Yeah, 'cause I think she's in the house, actually. I heard, yeah,
Well, I don't know.
temporarily abandoned. She said that there's too much stuff in it for her to even think about. I mean, like, she can't move it herself, so she's just walking away from it all. That's it.
That is something that, again, well, we'll let Reggie talk about it.
Yeah.
When he's here, but he has been successful with utilizing his crew when he gets the permission to clear up situations like that.
Okay,
That's that, working with the person.
great. Okay,
Right.
that's,
And he's an expert. I think it's amazing what he does because he is able to cajole that. You
okay,
know, it's not easy to do that. You send out a legal notice and you do all those other things. It didn't solve the situation
right.
and it cost a whole lot of money. So where do we put our money in this program? I think that's
Yeah.
pretty important. So,
Mark, I have a question.
yeah.
You address the sidewalks in general, sidewalks with that gray area. In our older neighborhoods, we have sidewalks being pushed up at funny angles.
Yeah.
And outside City Hall, you the grinding.
Safety.
Yeah, can you guys come help with that in our older neighborhoods?
Yeah.
So that we don't replace sidewalks that really need replacing, we just need to
Right.
grind down those edges.
groups that are popping up.
Yeah, whatever.
Just right down.
Yeah, that would help us a lot.
Well, my favorite
And older sidewalks, but that's not really in here. And we have to share the cost with this, I don't know what the latest is, but we spent a lot of money on our sidewalk. So is that addressed with the property care ordinance or
It really doesn't come out loudly, but I'm sure it's in one of these current city code.
Okay, because that's something that our older neighborhoods could use help with, is the sidewalk.
So who,
So I had a property in a different area,
Yeah.
in Flagstaff, one of my properties, and it's on Forest Avenue.
Yeah.
And so the sidewalk started popping up, and I saw it. I was gonna contact the city just to see who was responsible, but they contacted me. My responsibility is to pay half. They would pay the other half, and then I had to pay half. So I paid $850 to correct the sidewalk, which was, was fairly expensive. But they expected me to incur that amount.
So we're really talking about who to call, what the rules are, and are they written down?
What are the rules?
That's,
yeah,
Yeah,
and who to call to
That-
find out the rules, yeah.
or like who's on first?
and we,
who's on second.
we have somebody higher on the food chain right here who happens to be the planning director who's writing this down.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, development typically pays for offsite improvements, which includes sidewalks, but this is the first I've heard of down the line, the maintenance of it being half the tab being picked up by the property
Yeah, no,
owner,
they
so.
made me pick it up.
Do you know Michelle?
I
Consulting?
do, no.
No, Michelle.
He's
Sound
our new
crazy.
planning director.
Ah.
Yeah,
I don't know what the grinder costs. I don't know if the city rented it to do the outside city hall or if the city owns it, but if we can partner with the city in our neighborhoods to like take care of them before they need replacing, that would be.
Smart money. Yeah, and also looking at what the underlying problem is. Is it roots? Is it water?
Shifting.
Is it a little animal? Who knows? So,
Any possibility.
anybody
No,
online?
Never roots. We're not cutting down any tree.
Anybody online? Jordan?
On that page, it sees like some.
Okay, I'll proceed. I will not read the entire, numbers because it makes your brain shut off. But I will read the primary statement and just note what those connected chapters are. So this was the approach that finally sort of locked in. This was between myself, Dan Folk, Michelle, our code person that will also put this, will codify this, Tiffany Atoll. And we have not sent this to legal officially for comment, but they're aware of it. So this is the property standard. We're eliminating the word guidelines. We're just saying this is a property standard. Standards are enforceable. So this first sentence links to all of these. Provide for and or eliminate conditions of refuse, recycling, debris, inoperable equipment, hazard, attractive nuisance, or health and safety. And then the bullet points, provide adequate capacity for refuse and recycling containers, providing additional capacity as required to protect health and safety. And then that links to chapters on littering, solid waste, general fencing and screening standards for like commercial properties. Those would be your answers. Eliminate debris accumulation that harbors pests, deteriorates. I don't know if that should be the right word there. Deteriorating conditions. Present that present, we need to work on this, that present a fire danger and impact health and safety. We need to work on that sentence.
And also add an and or.
That's what you get for having an architect write something. Remove inoperable. Well, you have a daughter, right?
No,
How's your
no,
spelling?
it's different sober.
Okay, is it?
Different
Okay.
sober. Yeah.
I thought there was a connect there.
No, I've yet to meet them.
Remove inoperable equipment, vehicles, and appliances that contributes to debris, hazard, safety, and or an attractive nuisance to protect health and safety. And then there are chapters as well that link to this. Abandoned vehicles, littering, general parking standards. So that's where cars can be, where they are fronting the property, that type of stuff. If you go that far, we're talking about a step-by-step approach here. Remove invasive and exotic plant species. We just added that. So that's
That could be a giant.
right.
Yeah.
So we're just overcutting that.
Right. So I missed the term, the one before that. Limited hazards on the property and encroaching hazards that impact health and safety. So there are trees, shrubbery, prohibitions on use of right-of-way landscaping standards. That does exist. And then one last one, provide proper posting of no trespassing as desired by owner. That's just if problems exist and law enforcement is called up. If you haven't posted the property, they can't enforce anything. If somebody's in a vacant house doing what they're not supposed to be doing, if it hasn't been posted, they won't do anything. That's my experience. So
Few questions, but to address that initially, where does it describe what that posting looks like?
it doesn't,
So that.
proper posting.
Okay.
pretty much no trespassing.
Just a no trespassing sign is
Yeah.
sufficient.
I
Yep.
think that though, that's a good point that we could add a graphic,
Yeah.
just saying, you know,
Yeah.
similar to.
And we have an appendix here too on some other stuff. That's great.
Do we have, sorry, invasive and exotics? I think we need to have an updated, a link, because a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
What are invasive?
Yeah, I think Dan just added that to be discussed.
Okay.
Just to add a little controversy to the whole effort. So, who's online?
Stephen has a comment, and I believe it's about, the invasives. No, Stephen, do you want to chime in there?
Yeah, I just wanted to say maybe getting rid of the term exotic, because there's just having invasive, I think, encompasses what we're trying to accomplish with that line in there. But people plant things that are non-native and or exotic on a regular basis because of decoration and things like that. And they may not be harmful to the surroundings like invasives are. So I would just recommend, or I don't know if that's specifically in another part of the code somewhere where the term exotic is used, but if, in my opinion, I think maybe we could just remove that and keep it invasives. That was it.
The other.
You're getting a
word
lot
that-
of head nods agreeing
Yes,
with you.
we're all saying yes.
The other word that is in some other city documents is noxious.
Yeah.
That could be a potential substitute for exotic.
I have been called that.
I have another
Duffy.
question about the action.
Yes.
There are a lot of action words: provide and eliminate and remove. Where does it say who is responsible for those actions and the cost of doing it? Like if the city ends up doing it for someone, do they have to reimburse the city, or do they have to show they can't afford to do it, or whatever? That is, to me, that's not clear.
So who, what, where, when?
And it could be, that could be part of the intent or applicability statement that it could be applicable to, you know, property owners. We could make it clear in that.
That's very good.
Good.
Any overall? I don't think it was oversimplified if we went through our 10 items. I think we've repeated this again and again and again with those 10 items. We could go back again, but I did go back again and go, did we miss anything of the things that were in those original 10 items? I don't believe so. If we go on to the structures portion. If you disagree with me, go ahead. Let's go on to building and structures standard. That's again, something that's enforceable, not a guideline. Provide for and or eliminate conditions of vacancy, security, deterioration, attractive nuisance, and health and safety. It's almost identical to property. It's all both visual. There's the word. There's all visual and physical signs of vacancy of buildings and structures that invites issues as an attractive nuisance and or criminal activities impacting health and safety. So that's an attempt to try to look at the visual. And again, it happens pretty quickly if you've had experience with that.
There posting that needs to be done to make that just like above. Needs to be posted, no trespassing.
Really was.
That shows up. There it is.
It's down in the.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Flip the page.
Yep, there it is. Okay.
So health and safety, and then there is one of my hangups. Appendix for recommended securing of buildings and structures. Somebody says, what are you talking about? I followed it up with, Lincoln Island, or, on windows. You'll know that the person doesn't. So, not properly board a building. If you properly board a building and it looks like you care for it, it looks like you're going to do something with it, or you're getting ready to demolish it sometime down the way, you have a secure building, your liability is less, on and on and on. So it's valid for health and safety. Provide security for buildings and structures that prevents unauthorized entry to a building or structure that impacts health and safety. Again, there are attached chapters. Above city code, building code, nuisance code, graffiti. With this one, there is a chapter also in the international building code. So that's when you're taking it far enough that the building is getting pretty much. Provide remedies to deterioration of a building or structure that and or impact on the safety. Yeah, I don't think we're right there on feeling pain. Yeah. You know, soaking up the interior structure and perhaps leaking, and it's not habitable, that kicks you into the International Building Code. Provide proper posting of no trespassing. Then one of our participants, and I think it was very valid to add, anybody can add anything. I think it's really important that we have the community involved in this. It shall be the sole discretion of the City of Flagstaff to suspend enforcement of these standards due to circumstances beyond the control of the property owner, such as community events, natural disasters, fires, flooding, and managing the after effects. Do you think that could be an issue with where we are right now in the world of sandbags?
Yes.
Flooding.
Yeah.
And the Rio does that. Would it be like permanent suspension or do you want to add something?
Maybe the word
Like-
temp.
I think temporary.
Temporary.
It was, I think it was intended to be temporary.
Or,
I think the idea is like there's a major flooding event, and people do have sandbags or other things that are unsightly, like obviously they serve a purpose and we need them to be there, but
beyond their control.
yeah. I have some just grammatical. I'd like to see such as, but not limited to added.
That's a
because-
great, I wrote a lot of specifications like
Yeah.
that in my life.
And then I would just add a little bit of language that is clear that we're saying and natural disasters, fire, flooding, and managing the after effects of such events, making it clear that it's the after events of any one of those or any of those occurrences.
So my question is, you've listed these specific occurrences. How does homelessness fall into that?
I don't think we thought of that.
Because that is a very big issue with all the debris that they leave behind. And I hate to use the term they, but there it is. And it does cause the flooding and the backing up in the Rio. And so can we add that somehow to, I don't know that homelessness would be the correct phrase, but
But I think, so what is it that you're trying to protect from? Is it so it's the debris that's left behind by unhoused individuals.
Mhm.
So it's gonna either be on private property or it's gonna be in the right of way. And I think what you're kind of alluding to is, when it causes flooding, it's because it's backing up the grates and the drains and the different thing. I mean, I guess to me, that's a right of way issue. Which would be covered under the zoning code, because this is really,
So what would the Rio de Flag that runs along the homes on LaRue, what would that be?
For south side.
yeah. That's a good, I think we need to research that more because it's a great question.
I think the only person that will end up handling it, no matter who you call, who, what, where, when, why,
Is Reggie.
no matter who you call, is Reggie and
Is
his crew.
Reggie.
Also, I
And he
think
has,
that he-
he has three people.
Yeah.
He has three people and a couple of vehicles.
He's
and-
actually pretty fast
Oh,
at
yeah.
responding. He really is.
Yeah.
And he has helped me in some instances. And then other instances with the tree he kind of, somebody else got involved and said, no, that is, for the property owners to absorb the cost on you. And you can talk to your neighbors. But my neighbors, like I said, are not gonna help. I'm pretty sure. I've talked to them. So.
So my hope, and we discuss it all the time with this, is that it becomes a program. That it's a significant issue for people that live here that want a quality of life. Quality of life, visual welfare. And that it's enough of a quality of life issue that they want it resolved. If we set up a program that this is one aspect of, and that it's communicated that it's an important program and that it's funded to that point, some of those things that are really bothering people can be addressed with funding, staff, vehicles, that type of stuff. It's like the mattress thing comes up all the time. Solid waste does not pick up the mattresses because they get rained on and they get too heavy and people get injured.
So what do people do with?
Reggie's program handles it. They do. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a big proponent. I've also been a big proponent of the program idea. And I also think it could be a place, like to your point about like the Rio de Flag, but like for people to maybe have like creek cleanups. And we know that at certain times of year, especially after the snow melts, a lot of debris is left behind. And so I love that idea. And
Because we do cleanups, volunteer cleanups, a lot of open spaces, but right in the heart of town, I mean, do you think people would show up
Yeah.
to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
But it needs to be a paid for dumpster,
Paid for-
a managed dumpster,
Yeah,
staffed.
yeah,
There's your cost again.
right.
But we keep hearing that church groups, neighbors, people that want that, do want that. But the big thing that it's hard to do is
Get the dumpster.
get the dumpster, get
Yeah.
the management and, organize it all.
Organize it.
It seems better to just not have that happen,
Well, like the scouts.
Yeah.
rather than have to go pick up.
Yeah. We got a internet.
Steven's typing, I can just say what he's typing unless he wants to chime in here. We have a stream stewards coordinator to help organize volunteer cleanup events in the Rio. Contact him to help with some of those cleanup needs.
See, we don't even know.
So who is he that we need to
This is
contact?
Stephen Thompson in the city sustainability department.
Oh, okay.
But the idea of the program, I mean, what I would love to see it do is be kind of that spot where we have it on the website and all this information is, not just the ordinance, but the resources, because we've talked about this a lot. We don't want this to inadvertently force people who don't have the means, whether it's the physical means, the financial means, out of their homes or putting them in a cycle of being constantly enforced.
Yeah, and we're at a level of affordability. We keep talking about housing affordability and I can't put pen to paper to figure out how new construction will be affordable. So how do we keep people in their homes? How do we maintain the affordable housing we have? Plus provide some additional density.
I worked
If possible.
for NACOG for weatherization. We actually have people living in mobile homes, especially that in some areas that had such roof leaks, they had no place else to go, but they just put trash cans under, I mean, literally their roof was coming in, falling out. And we didn't do roofs.
Weatherization.
We weatherized your home to make it more energy efficient.
Yes.
So then we had to, and I scrambled and tried to find people that would donate or help, but roofers are roofers. So people do live in squalor, what we would consider squalor, and bad examples of not a healthy lifestyle. There's no. Yes, I'm sorry.
If solid waste is going around and there's something that they're not willing to pick up or for whatever reason, do they leave a note so people know who to call? Or do they just leave it there?
I think they leave it.
It would be great if they could leave a note
Yeah.
that says, hey, call
Here's your bright yellow tag.
I've seen that bathrooms everywhere. Just go, Rich.
How many? This thing, I think that it causes great concern.
Yeah.
On the object.
Yeah, leave a note on the object, because people put it out for it to disappear, not for it
Yeah.
to stay forever.
Because it is on the website what they'll take and that you can, I don't know if this is true or not, but
Yes.
it also
Yes.
lists the price that you can pay to have them pick it up.
Not everyone has
True,
computers.
that's
Or
true.
wants to spend all their time figuring out a website.
That's true as well.
I don't really think I need to go over the appendices on how to properly board up a building. I can teach a class in that. So
Where they can-
I can tell you it is almost instantaneous for the people that like to borrow stuff. I will call it borrowing versus stealing. When there's door hangers and mails and not picked up, it's almost instantaneous. They break in. Broken, loose, damaged, windows, graffiti. If a vacant building is for sale, that also people check the doors and try to get in. Then it kind of goes into, no trespassing, making way to secure windows correctly, properly boarding up. So it's like here. Also, after that is recommendations preventing building and structure deterioration. Provide remedies to deterioration of building that threatens its longevity. So that's my hang up. Okay. There it is. Okay. And allows for the continued, this is what we just talked, continued safe and secure healthy habitation. Repair, secure, replace, and properly dispose of deteriorated material. Roof, exterior surfaces, trim, windows. There's paint, stain, waterproofing materials. I mean, we know why buildings deteriorate because that protective envelope is not there. And you can lose the building when you could have done a very simple action. Recommendations for posting and security, vacant buildings and structure sites, and lots to provide identifiable and maintained boundaries. It's just a suggestion here. Sites to be properly posted for no trespassing and include contact information, phone, emails of management and or owner to report problems that impact neighbors and neighborhood desirability. Just calling the city, again, it would be nice if the property owner, somebody wants to buy a property, that all the complaints don't come city direction. Vacant property owners are responsible for security of and addressing problems associated with their property. These are just suggestions, so.
I'm curious though, to me, that bullet point seems like it'd be a valuable standard to include in the section, because I think that gives, it feels like that's a lot of what we're hearing is that
Yeah.
the vacant properties are more of a problem, and I think this gives us a little bit of teeth to start.
Or rental properties where everybody keeps saying people don't care. I don't know how to solve people don't care, but you would think, we talked about value, right? In the real. We're having a little bit of a downturn on value of property.
A little bit. One of the issues that I've been dealing with as a realtor, more recently than I've ever remembered in the past, are two issues that are environmental, but they are health hazards, and that is mold and radon. Come across that a lot lately. And when you're talking about these older buildings that are deteriorating, they've probably never been tested for radon, first of all. Secondly, if you have a leaky roof or you have plumbing damage or flooding issues that cause water in there, the potential for mold gets pretty high. And remediating those I mean, even just testing for them is expensive.
Yeah.
You know, mold test can cost anywhere from $500 to $1,000 just to test for it. You know, the radon testing is, you know, $300 or $400. Then you have the remediation. You know, remediate radon, you know, it's typically between $1,600 and $2,000. Mold remediation can be thousands of dollars depending on how significant the issue is. So if we determine that a building is deteriorating because of leaky roof or whatever it happens to be, is there going to be any testing done to follow up on those issues? And then if so, if they're found to be, they have mold, who's going to pay for the remediation? I mean, these are all things that you know, a typical person living in one of these homes is not going to be able to afford. They're not going to be able to do it. So how do we move?
Couple different answers. It's like, have your insurance pay for it that you don't have.
Or if the insurance would even cover it. I mean,
Right.
No guarantee
Yeah.
the insurance would
Yeah.
do it. Anyway.
Be on that list.
Well,
It is a health and safety issue.
Isn't the goal of this that there would be fewer and fewer of those for time?
Well, hopefully there'll be fewer and fewer, but what do we do with the ones that have it now, you know? First of all, are we even gonna bother to test for it? You know, if there's got a deteriorating roof and it's been leaking for who knows how long, going down the walls, you know, how are we gonna be done? And then if there's mold determined to be there, how do we take care of it?
We have some money for that? Doesn't the city have money for repairs when people?
There's something about radon testing, I know.
Oh.
They're used to, yeah.
Don't have me come. The
Okay.
reason there's radon testing nationally is Butte, Montana. It is Butte, Montana,
It's your fault.
because of mining and there are high levels of that radioactive gas. But I don't personally believe in radon testing because all you have to do is open up your doors and windows and it's gone.
But doesn't the city have a program to help people of lower income deal with maintenance issues that affect their property? We used to, I think.
Yes, we used to use block grant, but
Don't
we're not staffed up, so.
And then
But there
they
is still
talk-
money available, sorry.
Yeah.
No,
I think there is still money there, to your point, because there was some money that was put, seed money with this, with the direction to put this ordinance
Right.
together. So I don't know if
Yeah,
that,
but-
there's,
As far as the community development block grant program type thing where we had a housing specialist that did that type of stuff. And
Well, then we need it back. If there's a significant problem, people's properties are not able to house them in a health and safety.
Yep.
We need that back.
I know NACOG used to have, aside from weatherization, there was another, I can't remember what it was called now, but it's more geared for that type of repair than what weatherization was. We have absorbed one another, so it's just one program, I think. Is what I've heard.
is that statewide or county-wide?
Well, that's Northern Arizona.
Okay.
NACOG is Northern Arizona Council of Governments, so, yeah, that's all Northern Arizona.
And I would think there's a difference between when people are paying rent for a dwelling and when people are occupied.
But you always go back to the property owner.
Yeah, but I'm saying if I'm paying rent, there should be a minimum standard required by even the health department.
Yeah.
That if I am paying rent, they need to reinvest it in that property so that it's safe and unhealthy.
It's,
But if it's my own owner occupied, that's something we can help with, but if I'm paying rent, it should be taken care of.
it's like Section 8 housing is actually a good thing for that because they inspect for minimum requirements. So when you get that Section 8 certification, you are taking care of those minimum things. So coordination of programs.
Oh, there's a big, there's a.
No, that's-
big words.
No, that's interesting. I work with weatherization when I was doing housing rehab, and that worked really well. You know, yeah, I got the roof on and then.
Housing rehab is the other department.
Yeah.
Michael's been waiting.
Michael? Sorry.
Hi, no, that's okay. Hey, I just wanted to circle back to the comment about people don't care. And I know we're all trying to be respectful and kind and gently enforce these ordinances. But frankly, for absentee owners of rental properties that are most likely out of Phoenix or even out of state, the only way to get their attention is to aggressively and strictly enforce the code with notice, fines, the whole thing. Because these rental guys, they don't care. They're getting their monthly rent every month. They don't care what their property looks like as long as they get their rent.
Right.
So, yeah, we can be kind and gentle with owner occupied, but for absentee landlords, no. I vote aggressively enforce the code.
Well, we will follow our initial intent and keep proceeding through it, but we did listen to you, Michael, on, that's why we put and left intact the existing chapters that are in our city code, is that we can go to that level. So I
Okay.
think the realization that we had was that we do need those tools that are currently there. They've been adopted. They're difficult to follow through all the way. They're expensive. You don't know what the court's going to do at the end of the game. And we have a lot of experience of, you will clean this up in 6 months, and the judge says, well, give them another 6 months. You know, so that's where the problem lies and where we put our money. So
Right. No, I understand. And, you know, Arizona is such a
there,
property rights state. It's really hard.
but you're absolutely right. Littering is there. Posting of handbills is even there. Notices, all that wording is there. There's even, you know, the ability to lien a property. So there's a lot of pretty solid requirements that are there. There may be a few things that contradict that we would like to clear up when Tiffany looks into this code so that we're consistent. We're consistent in language, we're consistent in definition. So. Well, I sat down. Why don't we round table and see where we're at? Are we hitting target a little bit here? Hopefully. Do you think with the support of people that we can get it passed so that we at least have a framework for solving some of these problems? That's what we're concerned with, is that it'll kind of just show up and somebody will come out and say, you know, heaven forbid it was mentioned homeowners association, which I'm glad we got that out first because we're not a homeowners association.
And I think that, you know, as long as the communication to the community is effective, and I think as Deputy said, you know, not everybody has access to a computer or is computer literate, even if they have a computer. They don't want to navigate through some website. So we have to find a way of making sure that people understand a couple of basic things. As we talked early on, you know, a lot of this is already existent in city code. So we need to make sure that the community understands that we're not reinventing the wheel, that we're not adding a whole bunch of new stuff, that we're just really trying to pull codes together into one place so that it's easier to navigate both for the city and for the community as a whole. And then the other is making sure that we're effectively communicating available resources. And I think this notion of collaborating various governmental entities that all have different programs to assist with certain things, you know, what are they? How do people make those contacts? What do they do? What do they not do? So that it's easy for people to say, geez, you know, I can't afford to put a new roof on my house. Is there someplace I can go to get help with this? I think those are real, just general basic things that if we do that, I think we can get support, you know, from the community as a whole. The other is, and I can't stress this enough, but I think this has to go before the Housing Commission, because it's kind of their bailiwick to deal with this kind of stuff before it goes to the council. So if there's any recommendations from the Housing Commission, that those recommendations are heard and listened to. So I mean, I think those are the 3 points that I would make.
Yeah, I probably had a few more of our entities, but.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is, it hits planning, it hits sustainability,
Sure.
it hits housing, it hits a lot of those priorities. No, that's a great suggestion.
It's already been said, but we don't want it an HMO. The message has to be, this is not an HMO, because everybody will say, no, we don't want to do this.
Right.
You know, and so number one, this is not an HMO. Number two, we are trying to improve the appearance of our neighborhoods in plain English by doing a lot of the stuff that's in.
Hopefully it's covered in a way that you can be asked that you have a problem. And that will you please take care of that situation? And hopefully we get at least 50% compliance with the initial. I think most people, when somebody comes up to them and does a direct contact, will probably have a little bit of a reaction to that.
Yeah.
Even when we talk about people that are only worried about getting the rental income, they still are humans, and we hope.
You know, what Abel is saying about not wanting this to be an HOA, you know, that, again, in my business, I deal with a lot of people who, the first words out of their mouth is, I don't want to live where there's an HOA.
Yep.
That's the first thing they tell me. You know, that doesn't mean to say, though, that they want to live in a crummy neighborhood, that they want to live next to somebody that's got junk vehicles parked all over the place. They just don't want the heavy-handed approach of an HOA that comes to them and says, hey, your paint is fading, so now you have to paint the whole house. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
They don't want that kind of thing. But that doesn't mean to say, like, say that they don't want to live in a neighborhood that is where the neighbors show some pride of ownership and so on and so forth. You know, so somehow we have to find a way of merging the two thoughts together so that we accomplish what Abel was saying, because I think people do want their neighborhoods to look halfway decent. You know, you don't want to live next door to somebody who doesn't care,
Yeah.
you know, and has weeds that are 6 feet tall. You want, because it affects your value on your property and it affects your quality of life. So I think that's kind of what we're doing, you know, and as long as that's kind of the message that we're delivering, I think we'll be just fine.
You know, and Reggie noted that he's actually done code compliance in homeowners associations that have failed.
Sure, yeah, I'm sure.
We've got
Yeah, we just had a follow-up from Stephen, who has raised the possibility that after we sort of have a final version of this, that we actually create an outreach and communication plan as part of this effort to like address what you're saying.
Absolutely.
how about our ladies that are.
I think my main thing is that we eliminate the gray areas as far as who we do approach. And I know that came up, but that really is a concern for me because I get conflicting stories from people when I contact the city, and it's frustrating because, as I told you, I've had to pay for a lot of things that needed to be done out of my own pocket. And so you hope that you move forward and that there is some kind of a resolution to this.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
And we're concentrating on property care ordinance, but we should also concentrate on serving the community on,
Exactly.
and not knowing where that is. You know, Duffy just calls me. It says solve it. I don't care who you call, solve it. So.
I just called Duffy and then she calls it.
So we'll put you on the website.
Yeah.
She's magical, because I was.
Well, I've worked with outreach many times in different professional positions I've had over the 100 years I've been alive. But the programs are really willing to, like, we'll go back to NACOG. If you contacted NACOG and you contacted housing and you contacted all these other entities and gave them the information, but make sure the correct person, the person answering the phone, has that information. And then they, you know, well, they even have a pamphlet now with, you know, for where you can, for the food center and housing, emergency housing, you know, that you can pick up at the library. So, and libraries are great resources for people to find things out. So we definitely want.
It is strange where the money is sometimes. I could do handicap ramps with rural development money in town. You just go like,
Yeah, so.
you don't know where that money is
collaboration
hiding.
really
You really don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's there. So, like you said, how do you coordinate it?
But we'd also have to be very careful how you, I mean, everybody knows their neighbors, right? So you know if you're gonna, how you're going to approach that neighbor about whatever the issue is. But you still want to be respectful and you don't want to get a fist in your face either, but you want to be respectful. So you want to direct people to contact the program, correct? And not the neighbor. Is that correct? I mean, I guess you could contact the neighbor and say, this is who you need to call. But I think that we would need some way of the program being contacted and then it goes out from
Right.
there. That would.
And there's a whole lot of strength in neighborhood organizations and associations. There's a whole lot of strength there that can help out the city do what the city needs to do, but we're always going to be limited, right? Like,
We are unlimited.
no, I'm saying, okay, let's use the example of historic preservation and where our limits are potentially. Where's that definition? Where are our limits? How far can we push interpretation?
That would be a fun conversation.
Yeah.
I-
And
Duffy and eyebrows go.
then when you read very detailed code language, it actually becomes a little more convoluted, I believe. So that's where we do that. I can't go any further with my recommendation, which not happy with. I mean, if I was all powerful, you know, like Oz, I could solve those things, but I can't. So,
You know, one of the things, oh, but it's.
is the waiting while. Online, please. Who's that?
Hi, it's Valeria. The idea of, you know, like the comment about like, how are you gonna address your neighbor came up. And you know, like, I think that they would be beneficial for the city of Flagstaff to have a community mediation program in place as well, in the event that, there's residents in conflict. And, that could potentially help like eliminate or reduce some of the stress if it were to go, that far.
A lot of and then
Yeah.
residents plays that role.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Wow.
That would have to, I mean, that would be a position that could live in the same manager's office typically.
That would be great, yeah.
Sounds good. You know, one of the things that I'm dealing with right now in the city of Camp Verde is there's a subdivision, it's not that old. But there's no HOA, but there's CC&Rs. And I know that with the city of Flagstaff, there's a number of neighborhoods that have CC&Rs, but there's no HOA to enforce it.
Right.
So the question comes up, well, who does enforce the CC&Rs, you know? Well, I think with regards to this document, it has to be clear who someone calls to enforce whatever the rules are. Because with these CC&Rs, I mean, sometimes the CC&Rs are actually relatively clear about what you can use the property for, and various kinds of things like that. But who enforces it? Nobody knows who enforces it because there's no HOA.
I think it depends. I think mostly, I mean, I believe now that code requires if there's CC&Rs that there's an HOA.
Yeah.
I think so. I think it's.
I actually started when I was on the council, we started requiring that.
Yeah. You know, I think that that's a great question, and it's because it's a simple, because a lot of times the CC&Rs are in our zoning code. But to that point, we do reference them when we're looking at building permits. So you do look at the plat, you do. So if it's a use thing, or we would look at that, but I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
And it's not, I'm kind of like, answer because it's not a clear cut answer. It's
know.
gonna be, it depends.
I
It
know.
depends what the CCR is.
I'm dealing with it very much right now. It's, his house and the CC&Rs and the current owner who plans to be the tenant is in violation of the CC&Rs, but there's no HOA to enforce the CC&Rs. And so who does? Well, I have no idea. You know, it just says anybody could complain, but complain to who? You know, document has to be clear on that point.
So, Galen brought up the library, I think. You could do it. Probably, I don't work there anymore. A display in the library? Get it done.
We'll do as much outreach as we can. We were talking about getting it done quickly. We were talking about extending the time. I don't know what the right approach is, but.
And I also think the enforcement discussion will be really critical to the success of
Don't
this.
say enforcement.
Oh.
Say compliance.
If Reggie was here, he would squeeze your finger.
I can believe you can use that term enforcement when it moves on to this, you know, with all the dots and numbers and things, I think.
So the compliance conversations that the officials have will make a big difference with how it's received, and also the first projects, when people see that this makes life better for residents, they will be happy with it instead of making life difficult.
We will take any advice on how we communicate that.
Ask Reggie. I have to do it all the time.
Or, but I would love anybody that's attended. It would be great because we've had good participation with people that care. That would be very helpful.
I'm just throwing this out, thinking out loud, but to your point that people need to see good examples. But when something's code, it's code. I mean, one idea that I would throw out is there could be a sunset date on it, that we revisit it in 5 years. Maybe people are more willing to try it on for size. If it's a limited time frame, gives us the opportunity to build the program, have results that we can point to, but then everybody doesn't feel like, well, if this is a disaster.
Money pit for the, yeah.
We can revisit. So I would offer that as a suggestion.
That's great.
A lot of times, on a lot of different topics, we hear in Flagstaff that it's it's another wasted program. It's a waste of time. It's not going to happen, or they're not going to accomplish anything. These are the people that don't go to the meetings, by the way, and which is something that's my pet peeve. And so I think that if they see it see results, then instead of it being a plan of sorts, we really get out there, we really get started, and we really start showing results. Then you have the backing of the public.
is this group will, you know, when you write grants, you always ask for letters. Letters of support. Is that something that the people that have participated are willing to do?
Sure.
That would be so helpful. Because depending on, you know, representatives, they're fully informed or not fully informed or in between. And they may have concern from one person that called up versus people that showed up. Those who show up,
In the rain.
yeah. And
And on the bike.
And on the
I
bike.
saw the bike lane, I knew it was on.
That yellow slicker.
is that your good bike? That's not your good bike, is it?
I love that bike.
Oh, is
It's
that?
a bike. It's really fun to ride. Free speed. It's really fun to ride.
I know you have one a little more razoo, but
Yeah, I have some other bikes.
online, please, we have.
Hi, it's Valeria again. I was just gonna say that I wouldn't be able to provide that support since I'm a staff member. But I would, it would be great if others could.
Thank you.
Well, I think when we, if you're if people suggested going to different commissions, I think if we
Yeah.
have a housing commission support, sustainability. I mean, in some ways this protects the watershed because it does get to the debris, which fills up the watershed. I think they could get on board. Those will help a lot.
Yeah. That is what I came up with. I raised my hand and I walked into this situation, and this is where we're moving it on from my efforts. So I really appreciate everybody participating. Communicate with Dan or myself on any issues, and we'll modify the language one more time with some of the suggestions that came up. I'm really liking the who, what, where, why. That's usually missing in almost every ordinance.
That is very critical.
It's usually just put there, it's a city ordinance that needs to be enforced.
But most things in
But-
zoning code are very clear that it's the person, the property owner.
Yeah.
But this isn't going, this is going to, we don't know where this is living.
We don't know where this is living yet.
We have to find a home.
So Dan is going to communicate this to legal. We'll see if it's overly simplified. I don't think it is. I think it does both.
And there's a meeting on July 28th.
What time? What's it?
It would go into the 4 o'clock
4
meeting
o'clock?
here.
It's we have it listed as 5 to 7.
Oh, is it 5 seconds? Sorry, I'm thinking of my commission.
I have that problem, you know. Never have my glasses.
That, read the agenda.
Did you write this one?
When you-
No, Dan did.
For those
Um,
of
there-
us who
There was,
type agendas.
there was somewhat of a laugh from the ladies in our office that indicated it was the boys that were running this thing, that we could crash it into the ground all by ourselves.
That wasn't me, right?
I think you joined in. I have.
That's what it sounds like.
It sounds familiar.
Stop recording.
Stop recording. We're good. Thank you, everybody.